Is a blood spatter analyst in sunny Miami and a Japanese honor student with perfectly coiffed hair have in common? Well, besides looking like they both spend way too much time in front of the mirror in the morning, the answer is more than you might think.
Yo, what's going on? Stein here, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm comparing the shows in the stories of Dexter Morgan from Dexter and Light Yagami from Death Note.
Both live double lives, both consider themselves above the law. Both are obsessed with control, scenery, and outsmarting their hunters. And both have a fanbase who will argue endlessly about whether they're geniuses, a monster, or maybe they're both. Dexter Morgan and Light Yagami are two of the most compelling anti-heroes ever put on the screen. One stalks Miami with knives and plastic wrap, the other kills with a pen and a notebook. And even though their worlds couldn't look more different, sun-soaked Florida crime drama versus gothic supernatural anime, their stories are mere images. So today we take a deep dive into the entire similarities between Dexter and Death Note, and we'll talk about their characters, their hunters, their guiding figures, the loved ones they can't escape, and of course their inevitable downfalls. Along the way we'll ask why we are so drawn to these characters. Maybe the bigger question, which killer was actually more justified? Don't worry, this isn't going to turn into a which one would win in a fight video. I mean, yeah, sure, Dexter's good with a knife, but like, Light has the Death Note. Light would just have to write Dexter Morgan, Light would win. That's not what this is. But what is fair game is comparing how both shows built these characters and themes they explore, and why, despite being a live action and the other anime, ignore the Netflix movie, they both scratch the same itch for their audience, that forbidden fantasy of taking justice into your own hands. Because let's be real, whether you're in Miami Metro or a Tokyo classroom, the question remains the same. What would you do if you had the power to kill and get away with it? Both Dexter and Death Note hook you in instantly with their premises. These aren't just stories about killers, they're about killers who are doing the job society wishes someone would do. Dexter Morgan is introduced as the Bay Harbor Butcher, a meticulous serial killer who only kills other killers. And the twist? By day he works for Miami Metro Police as a blood spatter analyst, meaning he's not just hiding in plain sight, he's helping investigate his own crimes. Like Yagami, he's just a bored high school genius who stumbles upon the most dangerous item in all fiction, the Death Note. Write someone's name in it, and they die. Suddenly, Light has the power to kill from just his bedroom. No blood, no mess, no evidence, just a few pen strokes and the problem solved. Both introduce themselves as killers with a kind of test run. Dexter's first victim on screen is a man who slipped through the cracks of the justice system. He's calm, ritualistic, almost scientific about it. Light's first kill, a biker harassing a woman in a street. He hesitates writing the name. He waits, and then the guy drops dead. You can see the realization hit. It works. These opening kills are brilliant because they ask the audience the same question. Would you do this? If you had the chance, would you do this too? The way both shows set up their rules is fascinating. Dexter has what's called Harry's Code, named after his adoptive father Harry, who recognized Dexter's urges as a child and decided, well, if you can't stop him from killing, at least point him at the bad people. The code is a vigilante rulebook. Don't get caught, only kill killers, and blend in with society. Light gets the Death Note rules, and there are a lot of them. Seriously, they scroll by terms and conditions, like nobody actually reads them, but Light, he reads every one. He memorizes them, and more importantly, he finds loopholes. The rules say you need a name and a face. You can manipulate people into giving him that information. The rules say you can control the way someone dies. Great. He'll use it to manipulate the entire events. Harry's code restricts Dexter's kills, the Death Note rules empower Light's kills. And yet both men treat these kills like it's a holy scripture. For Dexter, breaking Harry's code is almost sacrilegious. For Light, the Death Note becomes a Bible of sorts, and he, its Messiah. Another parallel? Both start with the illusion of good intention. Dexter frames his killings and keeps the city safe. Light frames his killings as a utopia free of crime. But here's the key difference. Dexter never really believed he's saving the world. He knows he's a monster with urges and has to manage. Light? Oh, Light truly believes he's God, chosen to reshape humanity. And why is their first season so strong? Because they both dangle that question in front of the viewers. Are they heroes? Or are they just murderers with a good PR team? But make no mistake, both stories tell you up front this isn't going to have a happy ever after ending. Because living that double life on lies, blood, and a growing ego, that's not a retirement plan, that's a countdown. So on paper, Dexter and Light sound like they should be the same guy in two different universes. One got a scalpel and a stern dad, the other got a notebook and a death god. And if you swap the props, you could almost swap the characters. Imagine Dexter with the Death Note. Would he be as careful? Imagine Light with Harry's code. Would he even obey it? That's what makes this comparison so interesting. These two shows aren't just about the kills. They're about the rules, if any, keeping the killers from becoming gods. Alright, let's talk about the stars of the show. Dexter Morgan and Light Yagami. These are two beating hearts. Maybe cold, calculating hearts of their stories. And well, they share a surprising number of traits. They're also completely different in the way they see themselves, how they operate, and why we root for them or against them. Dexter is a classic trauma case as a child. He witnessed his mother brutally murdered in front of him and spent days sitting in her blood before he was rescued. That kind of horror rewrited his brain, leading to what we call his dark passenger, the urge to kill that follows him into adulthood. Light isn't traumatized at all. He's privileged, he's brilliant, good-looking, loving family, honor roll student. His problem isn't tragedy, his problem is boredom. He's too smart for the world around him, and he sees everyone else as ants. When he gets the Death Note, it's less about filling a psychological need and more about finding a toy worthy of his intellect. So right away we see the differences. Dexter kills to cope, Light kills to conquer. Both characters live double lives. Dexter wears what he calls a mask of normalcy. He dates Rita, goes to work, plays the good brother to Deborah, and all to convince the world he's just another guy. And the irony, sometimes even he doesn't know if he's playing the role or actually feeling it. Light's mask is different. He doesn't just pretend to be normal, he pretends to be perfect, a model student, dutiful son, even a volunteer at the police department to hunt down Kira, knowing full well he is Kira. Where Dexter hides in mediocrity, Light hides in excellence. And that is why Dexter feels relatable and Light feels terrifying. Dexter is the guy in the office who brings donuts and laughs at the boss's bad joke. Light is the kid in class who not only aces the exam, but makes sure you know he aced that exam. The inner monologues is just another similarity, the amount of time we spend in the heads of these characters. Dexter's inner monologue is calm, dry, sometimes even funny. You'll walk through a crime scene, describing blood splatter like he's giving you a cooking tutorial. His voiceover humanizes him, makes him complicit in his kills, because he's letting us in on the plan. Light's inner monologue, way more intense. Every move he makes is accompanied by a dramatic, scheming, maniacal laugh, and enough close-ups to power a meme factory. His thoughts don't humanize him, they defy him. He doesn't just plan murders, he delivers a full Shakespeare soliloquy while he's doing them. Dexter narrates his show like it's a true crime podcast. Light narrates his show like he's auditioning for Hamlet. Both men saying the same Achilles heel, their arrogance. Dexter thinks his system is foolproof until it isn't. He makes mistakes. He leaves clues or underestimates someone like Dokes. His downfall is gradual, one slip up at a time. Light's arrogance is nuclear. He doesn't just underestimate L, he actively mocks the idea that anyone could be smarter than him. And while that hubris gives us some of the best cat and mouse drama in anime history, it's also exactly what destroys Light in the end of the series. What's fascinating is how the audience perceives and reacts to each of them. Dexter is framed as an anti-hero. The show constantly reassures us, hey, don't feel bad about cheering for him. He's killing bad guys. We excuse his behavior because he's following Harry's code. Meanwhile, Light is framed as a villainous protagonist. Sure, you can admire his intelligence, but the show never sugarcoats his cruelty. He manipulates innocent lives to his family, uses Misa for his own benefit, and eventually kills people just for getting in his way. Fans divided whether or not he's justified, but the show makes it clear he's crossing every single line. So while Dexter is written to make us empathize with him, Light is written to make us debate. Dexter asks, could I accept my darkness and still live a normal life? Light asks, if I had the power of a god, would I actually be any better than him? Dexter kills because he feels he has to. Light kills because he wants to. Dexter's whole life is balancing the act of urges and humanity. Light's whole life is a spiral into his own ego. And yet both walk around every day with masks so convincing that the people closest to them have no idea, which just proves the scariest part isn't the monster, it's how good the monster is at pretending to be human. Every great story about a criminal mastermind needs its hunter, someone who gets close, someone who puts pressure on the protagonist, someone who reminds us, the viewers, yes, crime is thrilling, but crime doesn't pay. Crime has consequences. In Dexter and in Death Note, those hunters are Sergeant James Dokes and Detective L. Now, on paper, these two couldn't be any more different. One is a jacked ex-military cop in Miami with a permanent scowl. The other is a sugar-filled, sleep-deprived genius who sits like a gremlin on stairs. But when you line up their roles in the story and you compare their accents in the story, they're almost identical. Let's talk about Dokes, the Bloodhound. Dokes is the only person in Miami who doesn't buy Dexter's nice guy act. From day one, he looks at Dexter and goes, something's off. And he's right. Dokes is instinctual. He doesn't need evidence, he just knows every time Dexter tries to act normal. Dokes side-eyes him like, yeah, no, you're a freak. And he says it constantly. Whereas the rest of the police department treats Dexter like the police puppy. Lovable, harmless, bringing donuts. Dokes sees him as the wolf in sheep's clothing. He's aggressive, he's emotional, he's the exact opposite of Dexter's calm calculation, which makes every scene between them crackle with tension. Now let's switch to L, the genius detective. Unlike Dokes, L doesn't rely on gut instinct, he relies on raw intellect. From the moment Kira starts killing, L is already playing 4D chess. He sets up the fake TV broadcast. He narrows down Kira's location to Japan. He figures out Light is a student, all with no evidence, just logic. L is eccentric, yes. He sits weird, he only eats sugary food, and he has the personality of someone who hasn't touched grass in many years. But don't let his quirks fool you. He's terrifyingly effective. Whereas Dokes hounds Dexter with suspicion, L stalks Light with dedication. The two sides of the same coin, the relentless hunter. Both Dokes and L do the same job narratively. They raise the stakes for our protagonists. Dexter can hide from Deborah. he can misdirect Batista, but he can't fool Dokes, which means we can't relax because Dokes is always there, breathing down his neck. Light can manipulate the police, he can outsmart the FBI, but he can't fool L, at least not for long. L stares into Light's soul and basically says, I don't know yet, but I know you are Kira. That Tenson, the one person who can see through the mask, that's what drives the best seasons and the best episodes of both Dexter and Death Note. Now here's where things get brutal. Both Dokes and L don't make it. Dokes gets the closest as anyone to catching Dexter. He even manages to lock him up at one point, but he's ultimately outplayed, framed as the Bay Harbor Butcher, and killed by someone else, Lila, a side character Dexter manipulates. In other words, he was right about Dexter all along, but he dies without the satisfaction of being vindicted. L? He comes painfully close. He uncovers more about Light and anyone else, and for a while, it's a deadlocked game of cat and mouse. But Light always cheats. Light uses Rem, the Shinigami of Misa, to kill L. And just like Dokes, L dies knowing he was right, but unable to prove it to the rest of the world. In both stories, the hunters are silenced right when they're about to win, which is brilliant for the narrative, but devastating for the audience because deep down, a part of us wants the hunters to succeed, even as we are rooting for the killers. Dokes and L are both proof that if you're that one guy who can see through the protagonist's masks, congratulations, you've signed your own death warrant. At least Dokes just yells at you. L humiliates you in front of your own father. Every killer needs a guide, someone who nudges them in the right direction, or at least pushes them towards a direction. For Dexter and Light, those guides are very, very different. Dexter's guide, Harry Morgan, his adoptive father. Light's guide, Ryuk, a god of death who got bored and tossed his notebook into the human world, hoping someone would pick it up and use it. Harry Morgan isn't just Dexter's adoptive father. He's the architect of Dexter's entire life. He recognizes Dexter's homicidal urges as a child, and instead of putting him through therapy like a loser, he creates the code of Harry. The code says, kill those who deserve it. Kill clean, don't get caught. In other words, Harry weaponizes Dexter's compulsion and tries to aim it towards justice. Dexter isn't a killer, despite Harry. He's a killer because of Harry. And that's key. Harry's ghostly presence, literally showing up in Dexter's head, reminds us that Dexter isn't just following his instinct. He's following a philosophy that was drilled into him by his dear old dad. Ryuk, the Shinigami, is not a father figure guiding Light towards justice. He's the chaotic friend from high school who says, do it. What's the worst that could happen? He doesn't tell Light how to use the Death Note. He just explains the rules, sit back and waits for the fireworks. His only crime? True interest, entertainment, and apples. Where Harry tries to restrain Dexter, Ryuk eggs on Light by simply not interfering. And the more Light spirals into God complex territory, the more Ryuk is entertained by it. Ryuk isn't the guidance Light needs. Ryuk is just another audience member watching the show. Contrast in the influence. This contrast is fascinating. Harry is about control, discipline, and a code. Ryuk, chaos, freedom, and exploitation. Dexter becomes the Bay Harbor Butcher because Harry trained him to funnel his urges. Light becomes Kira because Ryuk unleashed him without limits. Both characters hear the voices in their head. Both have their actions shaped by these quote-unquote guys.
But the nature of those guides creates two different killers. Harry is the dad who catches you smoking a cigarette and forces you to smoke an entire carton. Ryuk is your friend who will hand you a bag of crystal meth and say, "Do it for the vine." One of the strongest similarities between Dexter and Light is how both killers are surrounded by loved ones who are entirely clueless and also slowly catching on. And those relationships are what makes these shows emotionally powerful, because it's not just the police or the public they're hiding from. It's the people they care about most, and they're hiding right under their noses. Deborah Morgan is Dexter's sister, and she's like the heart and soul of the show. She loves Dexter unconditionally. She looks up to Dexter. She depends on Dexter. But she has no idea Dexter is in fact the Bay Harbor Butcher until much later. And when she does find out that Dexter is in fact a cold-blooded murderer, it devastates her. Deborah represents Dexter's tether to humanity. Every time Dexter feels nothing, Deb feels too much. She's emotional, impulsive, and caring, the complete opposite of Dexter, but that bond is unshakable. Then there's Rita, Dexter's wife. She represents the normal life Dexter tries to construct. Family dinners, kids, white picket fence. Except Dexter's normal life is built on lies. He literally marries Rita while hiding plastic wrap in his truck. Light's family is equally as fascinating as Dexter's. His father, Soichiro, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Soichiro, it's been a while since I've seen Death Note. Give me a break. Is the moral center of the story. He's a kind, hard-working police officer who believes in justice. He loves Light, he trusts Light, and tragically that trust is misplaced. Whereas Deb suspects nothing, Soichiro suspects even less than nothing. Then we got Misa Amane, who is, well, Misa's hopelessly in love with Light, blindly loyal to everything he does. She gives up everything for him. In many ways, sees Light's Rita, a relationship that looks normal on the surface, but is completely twisted underneath. When speaking of the parallel dynamics, Deborah and Soichiro, the family member who embodies morality and blinded by the love they have for their brother and son respectively. There's Rita and Misa, the partner who's completely devoted, even if it costs them everything they love. Both Dexter and Light weaponize these relationships to keep their covers intact. And in both stories, when the truth leaks out, those bonds implode. Dexter and Light's double life are so convincing that they deserve Oscar nominees. The extremes and their mirrors. Now here's where it gets really juicy. Both Dexter and Light eventually meet characters who act as their extreme mirrors. People who take their philosophy and crank it up to 11. These mirror characters, or these copycat killers if you will, show us what the protagonist could become if they fully gave in to these urges. Dexter's mirrors and extremes. Trinity and Brian. Take the Trinity killer. He's a family man on the surface, but a sadistic murderer underneath. Sound familiar? Trinity is Dexter, but older. A look at what Dexter could become if he keeps up living this lie. Then we have Brian, Dexter's biological brother. Unlike Dexter, Brian embraces killing fully. No code, no restraint. He's what Dexter would have become if Harry hadn't given him the structure. These two characters are terrifying because they're not just villains. They're two possible futures for Dexter. Light's extremes and mirrors. Mikami and Mello. Let's flip to Death Note. Mikami Teru is the ultimate Kira fanatic. He worships Kira like a god. He starts killing in Kira's name, screaming, "Delete!"
like he's broken Matt Hardy, spamming the backspace on people's life. He's Light if Light's ideology didn't come with restraint. And then there's Mello, the chaotic foil to Nier. Mello is reckless, impulsive, and willing to burn down everything to get what he wants. He mirrors Light's ambition, but without Light's calm, calculated demeanor. These mirrors serve the same purpose in both stories. They force the protagonist to confront the ugliest version of himself. Dexter sees Brian in Trinity and thinks, if I keep going down this path, I will lose everything. Light sees Mikami and Mello and thinks, if I'm not careful, my own followers and rivals will ruin me. Bay Harbor Butcher versus Kira. One of the most fascinating parallels between Dexter and Death Note is their public image in the shows. In both stories, once the killings ramp up, society starts to ask, are these people truly the heroes? Or are they just monsters in disguise? And that debate is what shapes everything. The Bay Harbor Butcher. In Dexter, when the Bay Harbor Butcher's existence becomes public knowledge, Miami is split. On one hand, he's a terrifying serial killer who dismembers bodies and dumps them in the ocean. On the other, he's only targeting other criminals, rapists, murderers, monsters. Some citizens quietly approve after all the justice system fails sometimes, and murderers, rapists, and pedophiles roam the streets. The butcher never fails. He's the boogeyman the criminals deserve. But for Dexter, this perception is a double-edged sword. He loves the idea people might see him as the hero, but he also knows if he's exposed, that illusion shatters. To the law, he's still a murderer. No amount of "but they deserved it" will ever change that. Now compare that to Light Yagami as Kira. Light doesn't just get quiet approval, he sparks a full-blown movement. People chant his name, worship him, treat him as a god who cleanses the world of evil. Where Dexter is feared locally, Light is adored globally. His killings spark philosophy debates, mass hysteria, cult-like devotion. Some people even kill in the name of Kira. This turns Light's ego into a nuclear bomb. He doesn't just want to be a killer in the shadows. He wants to be worshipped, adored, unquestioned. He's not satisfied with being feared like the Bay Harbor Butcher is. He wants to be the god of the new world. He will become the god of a new world shaped in his image. The public perception reflects the protagonist's goals. Dexter wants to hide while doing what he does. He thrives in the anonymous nature of being the Bay Harbor Butcher. Light wants to shine doing what he does. He thrives in the intention of Kira. So what do we make of all this? Two killers, oceans apart. One stalks Miami's criminals. The other judges the entire world. One hides anonymously. The other basks in his worship. And yet, at their core, Dexter Morgan and Light Yagami have the same story. Men who believe they have the right to kill. Men who live double lives, hiding right in plain sight. Men who are undone by the very traits that make them powerful. It's a story about justice, morality, masks, and downfall. And it's just one that proves whether you're wielding a knife or a notebook, sooner or later, you will get caught. But now, I want to hear from you. Who do you think is more justified? The Bay Harbor Butcher Dexter Morgan? Or Kira Light Yagami? That will be it for this video. Please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more. Peace.